I never lied where I came from. Texas had its place for me to find a home deep in my soul. I must know the world as a whole.
Hi, this is Creatives Cornerstone, and I'm Carol Coburn, your host. This week, we have got Mayor Travis Mitchell in the studio with us. Hi, Travis.
Hey, Carol. Good to see you.
Hi. I wanted to use that moniker for as long as we could,
Right.
because I know that that's coming to a close, like next week.
Yeah, imminent.
Yeah, very soon. And I actually had Travis in on the show for Threshold a couple weeks ago, and he shared with me during that interview the fact that he's going down another path with his creativity. So I thought it was very appropriate. Plus, we just didn't have enough time to cover all the stories that you have. And I wanted to give you justice. I wanted to do you justice in this interview. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely.
This studio is fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
I like all the decorations.
Yeah,
Nice.
Decorations, distractions, whatever filter that falls in for you. So today, well, first of all, Mayor, we spoke briefly on Threshold, how you got to that point. Do you mind the reiteration for this show on your journey from Austin, business owner, to mayor?
Yeah, I'm an Aggie, so I started at A&M and got married there, or found my wife there. But we both moved to Austin right away. It was definitely the place to be, we thought. And I started a motorcycle business at the Y in Oak Hill, which is in Southwest Austin. Grew it there for 5 years, but then as the business was growing, we wanted to expand. We wanted to buy our own real estate. We wanted to build a dealership. We wanted to start a family. And it's really kind of difficult to do that, in Austin. So we started looking around, and ultimately we settled on Kyle.
A very small, almost rural community just south of Austin.
Yeah, it was probably 28,000 population when we first
Pretty
started.
Small,
but
given, yeah.
It was really undeveloped. Like, there's a lot of land available. So if you kind of are thinking like, the American dream, and wanting to plant roots in Texas in the Austin area and build a business, there was no better spot for us.
Right.
And so, we went through that process of, getting permits, and, it's just a lot, going through a construction project.
How long did that take you? When you made the decision that you wanted to open a business in Kyle and move your life here, how long did that take you?
About 2 years, which, looking back, is actually pretty quick. At the time, it felt like it was twice as long.
Sure.
You have unrealistic expectations. And
well, when you're not in the know and you don't know, when you're on one side of things looking.
Yeah, I couldn't have told you who the city manager was or the mayor was, or, I didn't even understand all the regulations. I just thought, we have our zoning, and that's, why we bought this piece of land. We didn't realize the nuances of, ordinances and codes that can be hangups and can actually make a project unfeasible. We found that out the hard way and had to go through some challenging times, but ultimately we got there.
Wow. Crazy that it would take that long. So you move everything to Kyle, and having gone through the experience of trying to get the permits and all of the things, you found, and I don't mean to be leading you with this, but I'm recalling you found that it piqued your interest in trying to expedite these processes, or understand why the processes were like they were, or what led you into city council?
I have a distinct memory of sitting in a planning and zoning commission meeting. Okay. And again, I didn't know anything, but I had to get what's called a variance, and in order to allow my project to move forward. And what that did is that gave the Planning and Zoning Commission the power to say no. And had they said no, I wouldn't have been able to build. So it was for someone, I think I'm like 28, 29 years old at the time.
Right.
I have a lot of my family's money invested into this, as well as everything I own.
Wow.
And they were sitting up on the dais, and they looked at each other and they said, "Do we really want a motorcycle dealership in town?" And they kind of had this sort of like discussion about whether or not my business was, worthy of being, brought
How
into the town.
interesting.
And my heart stopped, because had they ultimately decided to vote against it, it would have ruined my life. And it seemed like a kind of a flippant discussion that was had at that time, and it just really bothered me. But it taught me something, and what it taught me was, number one, I didn't understand all the rules and requirements for doing a development project.
Right.
I didn't know where the risks were. I thought I did, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. And number two, local government has a lot of power to shape the development of their city and to impact people's lives. And I just thought to myself, I need to be paying more attention, getting more engaged, because I knew that Kyle was on a path towards exponential growth.
Right.
And I thought, maybe instead of just, complaining and becoming just a vocal critic of the city, I should engage and use my, business skills, try to help the city have a more of a business mindset towards how they do development.
At this time, was it Todd Webster?
Todd was the mayor at that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And Todd ultimately became, a great friend and mentor. And it was the Planning and Zoning Commission that I'd had that experience with. And it's just one of those things, everyone has a catalyst for why they choose to run for office. You have to know your why. And,
Exactly.
And, you'd be surprised how different the why is for each person. But if you talk to them, oftentimes it comes down to some moment. Someone says something the wrong way, or they have a spark of an idea or a desire to prove something, and it just everything sort of snowballs from that. That was my why. But by the time I was actually running for office and getting elected, I had sort of transformed in terms of even just my understanding of how city government functions and what role I needed to play to make an impact.
Right. Well, kudos to you, and this is one of the reasons why I had you on Threshold, was that instead of in the background, instead of complaining, instead of, I'm going to use the terms running your mouth with no intention, you stepped up. You said that you saw something that needed a change or you needed to be more involved with. And instead of just looking the other way or being that person, like we have so many of, that just are opinions floating out there and trying to influence other people, not based on the knowledge of what is, just based upon supposition or whatever filter they put things through. And with whatever intent that you had, and I believe this in whatever political party you are, that action has a lot of respect from me, because it's real easy to be on the sidelines and in the background and just say things without knowing. So thank you for answering that call, for stepping up, for having conviction enough that you wanted to go through. What was the process for you of actually, because you're moving from town, you're moving into town, opening a business, and you don't know people. What is that like? Because you have to get the popular vote here to be able to actually get elected.
Yeah, when I decided to run, I say this, I knew 4 people who would vote for me, and my wife and I were 2 of them.
Right.
So I definitely did not know anyone in town, and
I'm guessing maybe Todd and his wife were the other 2.
I couldn't have even pointed him out of a crowd at the time that I wanted to, decided to run.
Sure.
The thing is, you have to kind of see what you're trying to accomplish from afar. And that's, this discussion I was having, this was in 2013 and 2014. It wasn't until, May of 2016 that the election was. But so I decided that I wanted to run for office in September of the year before the May election. And that gave me, 9 or 10 month window. And I tried to be sort of self-critical of what my chances were, because either seat, there were 2 seats open, but both were held by incumbents. So for me to win an election, I was going to have to sort of break in, to the scene, so that was a challenge. But I had this idea of I don't want to just show up one day out of the blue and start asking people to vote for me. that didn't feel like it was going to necessarily be an authentic way
Exactly.
to create value.
Yeah.
So I created this project called Our Kyle. And I started doing a series of videos where I would go to, I was trying to figure out, number one, what are sort of the cultural and economic heartbeats of the city? What are the things that are driving forces? And then I wanted to go get to know those organizations and
really
events.
kind of the foundation and the beauty in Kyle was
Right.
exposed by these videos that you
Yeah,
created.
it was right at the time where you could launch a Facebook page, and if you put together some pretty high quality videos, they would be relevant to the community. They would get shared, and then I felt like people would get to know me through the work that I was doing, creating value in the community.
Yes.
And it worked. I highlighted the Texas Pie Company. I highlighted the police department. There was one business.
They were all local businesses that
Yeah.
you did that video of all of these local, even back when we had our kettle corn shop.
Right.
And you were having engaging little blurbs from folks that
Yes.
really showed hometown Kyle, and I'm not talking about the subdivision,
Right.
that I would imagine, it really brought the community together, I felt, in my opinion, as a resident of Kyle. And of course, at that time, was working with my Concerts for a Cause with Sean Clace,
Right.
and trying to build that it was wonderful to get to know these people in Kyle, and then all of them getting to know you.
Yeah. So I wasn't someone who was steeped in Kyle history.
Right.
Kyle had existed for 35 years before me, and I wasn't there. I was from Gatesville, a few hours away, and I felt the sort of pushback from people. I felt like a newcomer, but in my mind,
It is a hard nut to crack.
well, but from my perspective, like I was investing everything I had into the community. I was
Right.
hiring people who lived there, and it was all about the future.
Right.
So my future was fully vested in the community, even though my past wasn't. And there's all these new folks who had moved into town, and I wanted to make an impact on the way Kyle developed during a really important period of time.
Right.
And so rather than trying to convince the folks who had a lot of historical background in the city to support me, I went and talked to the folks who had just moved to the city as well,
Right.
and said like, hey, let's make this town, really, really special moving forward. I think that helped. I think that helped a lot. And that's probably the only way I could have won, frankly.
Okay.
The popular vote is a good way of saying it, is the point. Like, not the
Well,
special
yeah.
interests.
Exactly, because then there's all kinds of talons that come with special interest groups.
Yeah, and I think it's that way in every city or
certainly.
in every election. And it takes some time to figure that out, because through the years I see new folks come in. They want to run for local office, and sometimes they'll ask me for advice. And my first advice is beware of special interests. And special interests, it's all different kinds of groups of people.
Sure.
So it could be civic organizations that are good, like the VFW or the Chamber of Commerce or the
Sure.
police union or the seniors groups or the any number, the Republican groups or the Democratic groups. It's not to disparage them, but it's just you have to understand that when you go to that group and ask for their support, that support is always contingent upon how you're going to posture for them when you
Yes.
get elected. And what I have found is those groups can get frustrated with you if you don't do something that they consider to be in their best interest at all times. And so you have to be careful about making promises.
Wow.
And you have to think to yourself, like, I'm going to put forward a vision for the city, and I'm going to ask people to buy into that vision, as opposed to trying to figure out what all the special interests want, and
it
then
sounds like such a
parroting back
fine
to
line.
them.
Trying. I can't imagine. Was that with the intent? Was your vision then to go from city council up to mayor?
No, it was initially it was just I wanted to make an impact on the city, and I really respected the mayor at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't thinking about becoming the next mayor, but I worked really hard at the job, and so I approached it from the standpoint of I'm going to communicate a lot. and with the public, and I'm gonna study. No one's gonna be more prepared than me. And then, and I've focused a lot on communication. And then when the mayor at the time decided, he wasn't going to run for a second term, then you kind of get into this point of like, all right, well then, who's going to run for a mayor? And it's fine for people run for mayor all the time, but the three mayors before him, they had all served on the council first. And so the mayor was elected essentially from within the council.
Okay.
And there's some real value to that because the projects that are going on.
Right.
You've got a little experience in terms of how things work, and you also have relationships on the council. So hopefully you can, assume that role. And, it became kind of clear, in those months leading up to his decision not to run for re-election that, that I felt like the majority of council would be happy to have me serve. And that's super important because being a mayor with a council that doesn't want you to be mayor or isn't willing to engage with you as mayor can just be an absolutely miserable experience.
But imagine it could be nightmarish.
It can be very nightmarish. So
how did that impact your business when you went into the political end of things? What happened to your business?
Well, the business was very successful in the first few years. When I had moved it to Kyle, and when I definitely noticed, having been on council for a while, that like, for example, if a customer was upset, they would threaten to go to City Hall and speak. And then
blowback.
It's just something that was easily attackable, from any political adversaries or whatever, that might want to keep me at a certain level or keep me pushed back a little bit, stop me from being courageous or bold. They
Your
would use the business
acumen speaking louder than the needs of the city or something.
Yeah. And I also knew that, when I decided to run for mayor, like if I was going to do it right, it was going to take pretty much all of my, bandwidth. And so I couldn't continue to, grow a business while being mayor. So there was kind of a choice. And it seems, like a kind of a crazy choice to choose being mayor over growing a business, but
yeah.
The business had been successful for a lot of years, and I was in a good spot, and I developed the real estate. The real estate had grown in value, and then I had also built up, some aspects of the business that didn't require storefront, that weren't as easily attackable, like a lending portfolio. So I had money coming in, and I decided to close down the retail store. Lease out the real estate, and then collect income from both the rent and the loans that I had.
Okay.
And that created like a 5-6 year window of time where I would be able to focus on just being mayor. And that was important to me because you can't be a leader if you have, easily attackable, aspects of your life or something you're afraid of, essentially.
Right.
And with that business still in operation, I just felt like there's just no way I can do both. And so I was all in.
Wow, that's incredible. And this had to be a lot of discussions with the fam.
Yes.
I mean, what a supportive family you have.
Well, I'm not sure how sane they thought I was at the time, to be honest, but I think they trusted that I was going to take care of the family in whatever
Travis,
way
I get from you that you might be an individual that they aren't the only ones that have questioned your sanity over time.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm not just talking about the political market.
No, it's, there's look, you only get one life.
Exactly.
And it'll be over before you know it. So I just felt like, I've always really enjoyed trying to be a leader in the community, and I felt a calling, like I wanted to make an impact on
You're really
Kyle.
packing your life. I mean, you are a very young man and you have accomplished much. So now you're in the mayoral role. Were there surprises for you?
Yeah,
or had you learned more in the city council, understanding more about that role?
No, I had great relationships on the council, but my first year on mayor led me to almost quit. I got so frustrated, and it had a lot.
The view's a lot different from the inside.
Well, it's like it's all about relationships with your colleagues,
right.
and so as a council member, I was really engaged on topics, and I was confrontational. I could sit on one side of the dais and sort of wait for my moments, and then try to make an impact. But as mayor, you have to be more of a facilitator and a moderator. You have to really pick your battles. Like the goal of a mayor should be to build consensus, and tactics that a council member might use to try to win a vote might be really perceived differently by the mayor because you're setting agendas, you're moderating discussion, and all of that. In my first year, I had ideas that I thought, man, these are things this city needs to be doing to get to the next level. But I just thought, I'm going to go out and be the one leading the charge, and I'm going to put council to a vote. I think I have the votes, which normally I did, but people who weren't in agreement, I mean, they did not like the way the mayor was really engaged on these topics and sort of delivering votes that were controversial over their dead body. And then I also was creating huge political liabilities for myself, because if you think about, like, one of the issues was hiring a lobbyist. I felt like, man, I just watched the city of San Marcos in the 2015 floods get over $30 million in federal grant money, and the city of Kyle got like $1 million.
Yeah.
And we had basically the same amount of flood damage as they did. And I was like, how did you get that? And they were like, well, we have this firm that we use to help us. And I was like, we have to be doing that. We are losing out.
Right.
But lobbyist, that's easily attackable.
Oh, so
and
much,
so,
yeah.
and then the other one was compensation, council compensation. That was a huge one early on. I wanted to, that our city charter made it such that you couldn't adjust your pay or you couldn't ask for any adjustments. It was hardwired into the charter. So it had to go to a vote of the people. And I was never afraid to ask the community, a question about compensation. But it's a huge political topic, and there's plenty of folks who are going to just seize on that.
Hot button.
The mayor made $200 a month, and I was working basically 7 days a week. And I was
fortunate. How many hours a day?
Sometimes 16 hours a day.
Exactly.
So certain days would be.
And you were raking a haul, $200 a month, man.
200, right? And so, but and council made 100, and I just felt like that council should be paid in such a way that you would never run for office because of the compensation, but you would never be prevented from serving because of the lack of compensation. Like, there's a spot in there that I thought made a lot of sense, and the way it was currently set up, like, you either had to have some kind of ulterior motive, you had to be using the seat for leverage for higher office, you had to be independently wealthy or retired, or you have to be able to benefit financially in some other way. And I just felt like, the majority of Kyle is just working class, dual income families. None of them can run for this position because it's just too much. And there was a lot of pushback that came from that, but ultimately we sent it to the voters and it was overwhelmingly approved. But the process of getting it there, those are the lessons that I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And by the end of that first budget season, a lot of my colleagues had kind of grown a little tired of my shtick and me constantly pushing, and it was very, very difficult. And I hadn't yet learned how to lead. Most of the council had been there longer than me. And so it was, I did this thing where I was like, after we passed the budget, I took a 2-week hiatus, which again is a stupid thing. And I was like, I'm done. Like, Mayor Pro Tem, you're in charge. I don't want phone calls or emails or anything. Like, I have to go reset. And actually that ended up being a really important time, because I started, sort of processing what was it about the former mayor that made him so good.
Right.
And what is it about the way I'm approaching this that made me I was losing relationships on the council.
Right.
And it really did have a lot to do with how I was managing the relationships. And so I sort of like recommitted myself to cultivating trust with the council and not getting out ahead of them, And if I had an idea that I wanted to pursue, not just jumping out there first with it, but massaging those, having those discussions, and trying to allow the the dynamics to come about more organically. And I think that ended up really helping a lot, because I had big ideas. I really wanted to make an impact. I mean, I was on a mission.
I remember sitting down with you early on and talking about your transportation plan. You're just wanting to be able to get people from point A to point B, just even almost such a basic thing. And there were so many people that needed that. And I was so taken with your sincerity and on that level, when you have all of this going on, all of the big things going on in the big picture, to be thinking about how somebody can get to their doctor's appointment. That really, I don't know. When I think about the scope, I get overwhelmed just thinking about your scope. And I was really impressed at that moment in time. I was interviewing you, I think, or we were trying to figure out how to figure it out. I was involved with the church, and we were trying to figure things out. And I just was so impressed with the fact that it was such a small thing. It's not a minor thing, but in the picture of everything else, the scope of everything else that's going on, to be thinking of the small things that have such a big impact on an individual's life and day to day.
If you did a survey of like the residents in our community,
yes,
and you asked them like, what brought you to Kyle, especially the ones that were moving in, like over 90% of the people would say affordability.
Right.
In the region, Kyle was always you could buy the most house for the least amount of money.
This is early on.
Early on, and it still is that way to some degree. But like the trade-off with that is quality of life. So like like people like over 85% of the population was commuting into Austin or outside of town for work.
And you were huge on work here, play here.
Well, you have to create a sense of place.
Yes.
And so we were spending a ton of time going to other cities and trying to figure out, what did y'all do in order to help just make an incremental impact on your town in terms of sense of place and quality of life. And really, the answers they were so depressing, because you run for office, you get this 3-year term, which feels like an eternity, and you think, it's just as easy as a vote. I'm going to put something on the agenda, make a vote, and it's going to make. No. Like, if you want to make an impact on your town, it takes years. You have to cultivate a project. You have to get support, that you have to overcome obstacles. Then by the time you've actually got the project past the point of no return,
right,
that's when it starts, and then it's multiple years away. So like, for example, the transportation dynamic in the city of Kyle, the road infrastructure, it's
that's such a hot button.
It's already done. Like, it's going to fund in the next 5 years. 5 years from now, bring me back to this moment, and it's gonna. They will not be talking about road problems.
Please.
But we've been working on it.
But it's a cultivation,
right?
And
so it started back in 2019 is when the cultivation of these projects started.
Well, to the resident, and I don't want to be putting you on the spot. It's nothing that you cannot be aware of, but to those that aren't in the know, that are just trying to get out of their neighborhood and the traffic and to get anywhere just in our little oasis of Kyle is so insane. And yet you see and obviously it's because of, all of this, all of the apartments and all of the building, which gives us places to live, but then it's all the more cars on the roads. And so, to the uneducated and someone that's not in the know, that's just sitting in their car waiting at that stop sign,
that is the core dynamic of local politics that you just articulated.
Exactly.
The difference between a felt experience and
right,
a frustration,
right,
and what to do with that frustration.
Yes.
Who to blame, how
And
to
of
be
course,
angry.
all the blame comes to the leader of our, yeah. Speaking of this is a good segue, I think, knowing what to expect, knowing what to, what you've learned in this process. Would you like to share what's next?
Well, so I decided that I was going to resign actually about a year ago. Like is when I started to know.
That floored me because this isn't the end of your term.
No, you're right. I mean, there's that. You can only do this for so long,
Sure.
right? And I have now served longer than any other mayor in Kyle history. I mean, it's a grueling process, but
Through a huge growth.
I was trying to get the city to a certain point where I had felt like that I had accomplished what I set out to accomplish, and I felt like I had done that, and also that I needed to start thinking about my family again and moving forward and trying to build a career and a business
Before
again.
they were out of the house and married and grandchildren.
Right. Yeah. So I spent basically this last year trying to gather all of the different lessons and experiences that I've taken part in over the course of 9.5 years on the
Right.
council and put it together into a book. And I've spent pretty much the entirety of the year writing a book, and it's going through editing now, and it's set to be published.
That's insane. Okay, so who's the targeted audience for this book?
It's a book on leadership told through the lens of local, holding and running for local office. When I decided I wanted to run in 2015, I started trying to find books that would teach me, like, what's it like to be a school board member or, on the city council or, any of those local offices. Like, what's it like? What are those dynamics? How can I be effective? And there just really aren't any books that are out there that teach on that specific subject. You can find books by presidents, by governors. You can find a ton of books on leadership in business or, life coaching.
Right.
But the dynamics around local office, that there's just not a lot out there.
That almost seems like a niche, though.
It is a niche.
Right.
But I also have wrote the book to a wider audience, meaning like if you've ever been interested in what it's like to be a mayor or to be a city council member or school board member, something like that, if you've considered something like that, but also just the dynamics of having running an organization where all of your decisions are out there in the public, where you have to make those decisions in the public. There's a lot of good case studies. And so,
Sure.
For 9.5 years, I've been involved in a lot of really interesting, moments. And there's a lot of stories that people have heard, some of the local folks have heard about, but maybe don't necessarily know the whole story.
And is this local Kyle stories?
It's my journey.
Your journey,
right? So
okay.
I'm basically, I walk you through the all of my years on running for office on council and then as mayor. But it's told more as an arc of learning to lead and then sort of enduring the storm and then making an impact. So it's a lot of the hard lessons, like mistakes that I made along the way, and then the lessons from that. And then I spent a good chunk of time talking about the pandemic, which is very therapeutic for me because the pandemic is something that I think a lot of people just sort of flushed out of their brain as soon as it was over.
But it's responsible for so many changes to so many things.
It is, but there was a lot that happened in the pandemic.
Yes.
So I spend like 4 chapters actually sort of going through that because it wasn't just the pandemic. It was also, George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter happening.
Politics in the COVID. In the
and we had this whole sort of reckoning over Rebel Road and, the Rebel mascot at Hayes High School.
Oh my gosh,
some of that. So things that people have heard about but don't necessarily know the whole story. And so, but I tried to explain some of those things while also drawing out the lessons from that.
So this book is really, not only would it be beneficial to people considering office, but almost the general population and the people, the people that vote, giving an inside look, I think would help also when you're looking at people's character and who they are.
Yeah, I could have written about a lot of things, but I could have just written, sort of like a memoir. It's not a memoir. It's called All Leadership is Local, which is a play on All Politics is Local.
All leadership.
Like really, learning how to lead in the setting of local office you get a pretty good education on what leadership is, and then also where you might fall short. And I want to, if somebody would be willing to read and go through this story, I want them to take away lessons that I had to learn the hard way,
right?
Essentially,
right.
So that in life, or being around the politics of local government, maybe they don't have to make quite so many mistakes.
Now, you came in from out of town and submerged yourself in Kyle culture. And you had to educate yourself for the history of a community that not only were you moving into, but that you wanted to lead. Any interesting stories from there?
Well, it's interesting you say it that way, because so often people decide they want to get involved in their community, but they don't understand the context.
Right.
And that really drives a lot of mistakes. If you don't know what's behind something, what's motivating people, or what their background is, then your perspective is going to likely just be flawed, because it's really just you in your own head making judgments on someone else. And I felt that way a lot early on, like people were making judgments against me or about me in ways that weren't accurate to who I was.
Right.
And only over time did I start to kind of realize maybe that I was doing the same thing to the people who had raised in Kyle, like the old timers, you might say, the ones, the historic legacy families. I thought, they probably don't like me because I represent change and they don't want things to change. Just a lot of like judgments, while saying they're judging me, I'm actually judging them.
Right.
And it took me a number of years to finally start to understand and process that. And when I did kind of get to that point of revelation, it freed me up to start studying Kyle history, to really try to understand what happened. There's 120 years when the population of Kyle was basically between 1,000 and 3,000 people. Wow. Generations of families born and raised and have, in one town. And I knew some of the stories and had researched some stories, but I went through and did that research with a political lens, as opposed to an empathetic, like, I want to know warts and all, the story of the city. And man, Kyle is just like most towns, but Kyle in particular has got some incredible history behind it. And I put a lot of that together in the form of my last State of the City address, actually, where I talked through some of that.
Yes, please.
Well, for one, the first plane crash in Hays County, and I say plane crash, it's really the first plane landing or the first plane ever in Hays County, was called the Vin Fizz Flyer. And it was piloted by a man named Cal Rogers, who bought his plane from the Wright brothers.
Wow.
And have you ever heard the name William Randolph Hearst?
Just once or twice.
Yeah, well, he was this powerful news publisher, owned papers, and they wanted to sell papers. And, the Wright brothers, they invented airplanes in 1903. Mm-hmm. And by 1911, he's putting out $50,000 prizes for the first person who can go transcontinental flight. You get 30 days, coast to coast. And this guy, Cal Rogers, he decides he wants to, give it a go. But you can't do it because these planes are like kites.
Right, they're not built for that endurance.
It's canvas stretched over spruce wood. It's hand hewn propellers. You've got two levers, an elevator and a warping lever. That's how you fly it. It's just crazy. The Wright brothers were bicycle mechanics, and the first plane is like a bicycle with a kite strapped to it. And so Cal Rogers decides he's going to follow the rail line, because there's a train that's going to go with him, a 3-car train, support train, with replacement parts and reporters and stuff.
That's smart. Okay.
So he starts out of Brooklyn, New York, And eventually he gets to Waco. Then he flies south to Austin. He does a loop around the Capitol, and then he's heading south towards San Antonio. And everyone in Kyle knows that he's coming over, and so they're all super excited. But as he approaches the north end of the city, the piston in his engine snaps in half, and he turns into an uncontrollable dive right into Kyle. So it takes all of his might to pull the plane level right before he hits the ground, and he narrowly misses a house, and then he lands in Mrs. Bunton's field. It's so crazy because the next day there's this driving rain. A front comes in, so he's stranded in Kyle. It's making headlines all over the nation. I mean, New York Times. I mean, everywhere. I mean, it is the story that Cal Rogers is in Kyle because everyone's following his journey. 8 pilots.
Well, sure, and with Hearst bankrolling the potential.
He's so genius because the way he did it. But 8 pilots tried. All 7, except for Cal Rogers, had already quit. So everyone is pushing this guy forward. They need to make a motion picture out of this.
Oh, that's fabulous.
His plane is hanging in the Smithsonian right now. And I was just in D.C. and I wanted to go see it, but thanks to our government being shut down, it was closed.
You weren't able to see it.
So, but he's there in this driving rain, and he can't speak once he crash lands. They say it was the closest he came to perishing on the entire trip. And he runs to his wife on the train, who's traveling with them, and embraces her, and and his mom is there. And the reporters, when he's at the train, the reporters are like, "Are you going to fly?" They don't have a microphone, but you can imagine. Are you going to? When are you taking off? And he's like, "I can't." He retires to his room without really saying anything. And then his mother starts wagging her finger, "You reporters and all of this craze, y'all are going to put him in the grave."
Oh wow!
And it starts blaming essentially the media frenzy on this guy pushing himself to try to achieve this. And so the next day, though, the sun's shining, they've replaced the engine, but it's in a field, and because it's rained, it's muddy.
Yeah.
And so the only way to take off, they take the wheels off. He takes off on skids, but this time he wants to let the train get out ahead, and so he does a circle.
Hold on. They took the wheels off to take off. At what point did they put the wheels back on so he could land?
Well, this isn't like a 747, this is it's got skids. So no, he just basically lands on metal.
Okay, sorry. Carry on with your story. My mind was going ahead.
Well, but he's got 70 pounds of mud on his plane when he takes off. But he circles Kyle for 20 minutes, letting the train go out, which means that if you think about it, and the whole town is there watching. Everyone. Every single able-bodied human from Kyle is there watching it. But they got an air show. They got to watch a plane fly around their town right in front of them for 20 minutes, which is longer than nearly anyone in human history had ever seen a plane fly.
Sure. It's all so new.
Can you imagine, what the kids, how they felt watching that plane,
That memory.
Well, he continues on his journey, and he eventually makes it all the way to Pasadena, California, and his name is now in the record books as the first human to perform a transcontinental flight.
But he landed / crash landed in the city of Kyle.
And so the stories in Kyle history are just like that.
Thank you for not only stepping up and serving, but for the education today that we all got. And I would love it if you would share again the name of the book and approximate availability, when it will be available, when it will be out, and then anything else that you would like to share before we end our time here.
Yeah, the book is called All Leadership is Local, and it's really an homage to the experiences I had being a leader in the city and the lessons that I learned. It is in production now. It is in its final round of content review and edits. The book is going to go on pre-sale.
Okay.
And so it will soon be available, and I'm hoping that by the time this publishes, this podcast is available, that I'll be able to share the link to make that pre-order.
Perfect.
If you order ahead of time, I'm committing to signed copies.
Oh, yay.
So it's going to be a couple of months before they finish the printing of it
Sure.
all, and those are available for delivery. But yeah, I'm excited to try to put the entirety of the 9.5 years together, because there's been so much transition through those times.
So much. Wow. And we continue to transition. I understand wanting to hold on to history and wanting to embrace roots. And there's so many ways that we can do that. But you have to understand that growth is perpetual and continual. And if you stop growing, you wither and die. So thanks for leading us in to the next decade. I mean, the difference in Kyle, I know that there's a lot of, stuff around that, but the difference in Kyle, I have waited forever for a bagel shop that has come, for our little grocery store, our little vegetable farm market that just opened, that now keeps me from having to drive all the way up William Cannon and Manchac to be able to just ride my bicycle over there, which I did last weekend, and do some shopping. So I am all about progress. Infrastructure, I work with a bunch of civil engineers by day at the university. So infrastructure is, an important thing to me, and travel time. But thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your story and the view from the inside that not a lot of people have. We have a lot of filters we put things through. Yeah. And I appreciate your conversation today.
Thank you. And I would just say that if you're wanting to be involved, if you're wanting to step up and lead, understand that you might feel like you get misrepresented. You might feel like that the job, leadership takes more than it gives. But what you might also find is that you have an opportunity to live a very fulfilled life and make an impact on your community or an organization or in whatever way that you're leading. And I think the folks who choose to take that journey will, be glad that they did. And so I hope that people take away, if they listen to this, that this idea that it's worth it. It's not easy, and
Sure.
It's not about being the most liked or the most loved, but leadership as a calling, if you're called to be a leader, it's worth it in the end, because you get to go home at night knowing that what you worked on that day hopefully will have a positive impact on the lives of others. And that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Thanks again, Travis,
Thank you.
For coming back into the studio and sharing this and the news of your book. I'm excited to read that. I said it sounded nichey, but it really sounds like it's for a lot of, leadership and how to lead. So very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Y'all, we are going to say goodbye now. And we're grateful that you tune in and watch. Of course, Austin Public Access on Sundays, 11 a.m. on Channel 10. You can get there by the app. You can watch it on your phone. Download it on your smart TV. Spectrum carries it local, Channel 10. And we appreciate you being here. Of course, after it broadcasts on Access TV, we then put it up on our YouTube channel at Creatives Cornerstone. If you journey there, I hope that you will subscribe. Doesn't cost you a thing. And it helps with our analytics, which, let's talk tech, right? And the more people that view our program, obviously, gives a larger stage to the creatives that come and join us and entertain you and sometimes educate you. And people you want to know, people you want to meet, people like Travis Mitchell here. So thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
I'm Lurleen Ladd, and I am the founder of Wavemakers Women in Music, and I am here with Wendy Colonna. We are so proud to be on Creative Cornerstone's Wavemaker segment featuring our artist. Here you go, Wendy.
Thanks, Lurleen. Good morning, everybody. Hello, happy afternoon, whatever it is to you. We are here today with Miss Mandy Rowden. Mandy, an incredible songwriter, but she's also a community builder. She's created Girl Guitar, which puts women in music together and helps them to not only grow as musicians, but build community around music. And she's also doing something really special this fall. Can you tell us a little bit about your new baby?
I can only imagine you're talking about the Texas Women Songwriters Festival.
Indeed.
Which is a very, very exciting project slated to happen this September in downtown Lockhart. This is our first, but it's going to be the first of many. So depending on when people see this, it's not a done deal. This will be ongoing for a very, very long time. It's something I'm very proud of. Speaking of historic, it's the first time this many Texas women songwriters have been brought together exclusively and celebrated in such a way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing that.
It's my pleasure. Thanks to the women for doing the work. And it's high time it got a little more attention, a lot more attention.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to play for us today, Mandy?
I'm going to play a song off of my most recent album called Peace, Where I Used to Have None. I came up in gospel music, and while I've been very successful as a full-on heathen, I still do write in the gospel style from time to time. So this is a tune that I'm going to share for you now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mandy Rowden.
Once upon a time, fear ruled my life. Once upon a time, fear ruled my life. No happiness could find a home in all that strife. When fear ruled my life. Now I wake up to face the sun. Now I wake up to face the sun. Set my troubles to pack and run, and I've got peace where I used to have none. I've got peace where I used to have none. Peace where I used to have none. Sent my sorrows back to where they came from. I've got peace where I used to have none. And the river, it flows night and day. The river, it flows night and day. Washed all of my troubles away. The river flows night and day. Ooh. Now the hardest days are done. Now the hardest days are done. The battle has been fought and won, and I've got peace where I used to have none. I've got peace where I used to have none. Peace where I used to have none. Send my sorrows back to where they came from. I've got peace where I used to have none. Ooh.
dream without wings, a silent spring. I knew you were there, but I could not see. Blinded by shame, I carried a flame deep in my heart till I knew your name. Turn up the music and let me feel your heart. We move together, the swirling dance of stars. The Venus to your Mars. I'm so inspired by you and all the heights you take me to. Can't quit my desire for you, even after the hard times we've been through. I'm still inspired to keep on loving you. And when the darkness is closing in, my bones are weary, the ache is deafening. I reach to find you, defying gravity. Your love lifts me up where I can finally sing. Turn up the music and let me feel your heart. We move together, the swirling dance of stars. The Venus to your Mars. I'm so inspired by you and all the heights you take me to. Can't quit my desire for you, even after the hard times we've been through. I'm still inspired to keep on loving you. Oh, your light keeps moving. Oh, your love keeps moving. Oh, your magic's moving through me. I'm so inspired by you and all the heights you take me to. Can't quit my desire for you, even after the hard times we've been through. I'm so inspired. All the heights you take me to.
We hope your new realtor plays drums in a band. We hope your new dentist is its front man. We hope live music always makes you proud. Just don't call the cops if you think it's too loud. South by South by South by Southwest. We hope you'll like it so much you'll move here just like the rest of us non-native Texans.